Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. So this video will be my first video in the category of knowledge in my channel. In this video, I will be talking about a figure who is very important to me as a literature student, who is a figurehead of English literature, English as a language. Someone who you might know even if you're not a literature student or someone who has studied literary work. This is the man, the myth, William Shakespeare. So, more than 400 years ago, in a small town called Stratford upon Avon, a man was born who would change the world with words. William Shakespeare was an actor, a playwright, and a poet who wrote stories about many themes, such unique themes that has never been discussed earlier in other works. His life also is partly a mystery because of the years and the centuries. But his work is still discussed upon, argued upon, debated upon, taken inspiration of, even after centuries later. Now, I would like to preface this video by saying that this video is an introduction for newer literature students, or someone who is interested in knowing who Shakespeare really was. And I would like to let you know that this is not a video that will be deeply analyzing his personal life. I will just be discussing about his work and his influence in English and his influence in literary work. That will be it. Okay, so we know that Shakespeare was born in Stratford upon Avon in England. He was baptized on 1564, which was the year he was born, in 26th of April. Shakespeare was always well versed in Latin. He was also well versed in, educated in classical literature and rhetorics. He was married to Anne Hathaway when he was 18 and Anne Hathaway was 26 in 1582 BC. They had three children, Susanna, Hamnet, and Judith. Shakespeare's introduction and his beginning to his career as a playwright and a writer in general was when he first wrote his plays Henry VI and Titus Andronicus and gained popularity in 1594. So the trick he did was that he first wrote about historical characters. You know, when we see something or a drama or videos about historical characters or someone we already have heard about, we genuinely get curious to know what this play is about, what this video is about, right? So Shakespeare used this curiosity because he knows that if he used a historical and an important character, this is about like royal characters. He knew that he would gain popularity, that he would be sponsored by the wealthy because times were different and money was needed to actually get to a longer run as a writer. And Shakespeare gained popularity, as I mentioned earlier, in 1594 BC because his work was historical and it gained the attention of the royal families, it gained the attention of nobles, it gained the attention of normal people. And by this popularity, he became a shareholder and an actor in the Lord Chamberlain's Mint, which was this theatrical company that later became the King's Men under King James I. And in the later 1580s or early 1590s, he moved to London. That was a little bit of an introduction about his personal life, his background, as you know. Okay, so when we're talking about Shakespeare's works, he has written a total of 39 plays and 154 sonnets, as well as two long narrative poems. Now, when we think about it, you might just think this is, man, he wrote 39 plays, so what? If you know about his plays and his dramas and have done a deep dive about them, you'll understand how much of a big deal this is because they are all well thought and those ideas are very influential. Even when we read it today, we get a big idea about his time, the Elizabethan era, which is also known as the golden era of literature. And we can also get a clear idea about his own mentality about the society. And when we are discussing about sonnets, the sonnet form of Shakespeare was very unique and very well thought out. I will be discussing about this in I think my next video. And if we discuss about this, we'll see that how much thought has been put on to these structures and these sonnets. And that is why Shakespeare is put on a pedestal because he deserves that. So these works are actually some of my favorites, not all of them, but some. As we can see, his comedies being The Midsummer's Night's Dream, Twelfth Night, Much Ado About Nothing. So I think from that, Midsummer's Night's Dream must be my favorite because I acted in a play when I was about 10 or 11. I really loved it. And his tragedies, Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, and King Lear. From that, Othello must be my favorite because I love the ideas and also the themes, the quotations coming from Othello. And also his historic plays, Henry V and Richard III, are also very famous and very loved by people. So, when we are talking about his influence on English, because remember, at this point, the language of England, UK, United Kingdom, was this archaic English language. So it has still not been that developed and into the stage that we know English as. Shakespeare was a big influence on English. He actually considered beyond literature into modern storytelling, even we can actually see influences of Shakespeare in today's work as well, in movies, in films, even in some endings, like in Romeo and Juliet's ending, it is really well written. And most plays or most films, most short films, short videos, people use those things, those themes, and those ideas, or even direct references to those work. It not only inspired filmmakers, novelists, and playwrights worldwide, it also affects people up until now. Now, that is called influence. That is why Shakespeare is much more important as a person. Like when we are talking about poets who have been influenced from Shakespeare, we can see numerous poets from Joel Milton, John Keats to T.S. Eliot, Maya Angelou, Ted Hughes. There are so many poets because Shakespeare was this influential figure that has been very important to all literary mediums, even today. And in plays like Lady Macbeth, and Romeo and Juliet, are actually eminent even in different cultures. Like if I ask my mother about something about a love story, I think a forbidden love story, she'd say, "I those two are literally Romeo and Juliet." Now my mother has not done any literary work. She hasn't even studied about anything literature. But even she knows about Romeo and Juliet. And when we are talking about different medium, let's see if you're talking about some other cultures, not the culture of England. And in all cultures, these works are really mentioned and they are kind of a constant in all cultures. And it is very, very interesting to see because that much of influence was in Shakespeare's hands. And that is very even prideful to see. Shakespeare will be very proud to see that his influence has been that deep rooted. And also, as I mentioned earlier, Shakespeare has these unique themes that has never been discussed, or maybe has been discussed in a very vague way. But Shakespeare has made it his main theme, like ambition, love, betrayal, fate, and even identity. And these themes are used up until today in the ways that Shakespeare has seen them. Like the way Shakespeare has portrayed them is the way many people are still inspired to use. That influence is very, very rare to have as a writer. And that is why Shakespeare is called as an influential writer and an impressive person. Also, not only that, there are these phrases like wild goose chase, in a pickle, heart of gold, break the ice. These kinds of phrases are purely like introduced by Shakespeare. We still use them. Those are introduced to the English language simply by Shakespeare. How interesting and fascinating is that? Like some things like also green eyed monster for jealousy. That phrase is actually one of my favorites in Othello. We can see those phrases like it's Greek to me, all that glitters is not gold. All of them are Shakespeare's own words. And it makes me feel very even astonished that they didn't exist before Shakespeare. But after Shakespeare, they actually are now used as very common phrases. And that is the influence he has had on the English language. And also, by the end of his lifetime, he retired to Stratford-upon-Avon, his hometown, in 1613. And in 1616, in April 23rd of 1616, he died, but his legacy is still uh, left behind. Even after centuries later, we study about him, we perform his plays, and most of them are adapted into films, movies, or even series, TV series. His contribution to entertainment, to literature as a whole, and English language especially, is unparalleled, and honestly, it's unforgettable. He still remains as one of the most important and most significant artists, poets, and writers in the world of literature because his work was what influenced many, many people. So that's what I said. Yeah, thank you for listening. So, as I said, this is not a very detailed introduction about Shakespeare. This is simply introducing who Shakespeare is and what influences he had on the English language. But I do hope that you learned at least something new from this video. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!